With us now, the editor-in-chief of the Marshall Project, Bill Keller. He writes in this week's New Yorker magazine about the rising conservative movement toward prison reform. And Bill, you write that if a conservative is a liberal who's been mugged, a liberal is a conservative who has served time. It's so fascinating that you write that, because I was just scratching down. Irving Kristol was, Irving Kristol had said conservatives are a liberal who's been mugged by reality. And then Tom Wolfe responded by saying, yeah, but a liberal is a conservative who's actually served time. Yeah. Talk about it.
There are lots of examples. I mean, the guy who's the focus of my piece in the New Yorker, Pat Nolan, was head of the Republican Party in the California Assembly back in the 80s, got caught up in an FBI bribery sting, pleaded to a racketeering charge, and got a 33-month sentence. He didn't come out liberal by any means, but he came out transformed on the issue of how the criminal justice system works, not just prisons, but how prosecutions work, the way prosecutors use their discretion to pile up charges, to sort of force you to cop a plea, the way investigators, intimidate your colleagues and friends and donors in order to get them to testify against you, in order to, to nail you. I mean, there are lots of other examples. Bernie Kerik is one of the most recent examples, who I think still remains a Rudy Giuliani conservative, but he did time and is now lobbying for prison reform, including restoring the voting rights of people who've been in prison.
Yeah, we had him on when his book came out. Don't think he's talking with Rudy, though.
I don't think so.
Well, obviously, Senator Rand Paul has been out front on this issue. Charles and David Koch have made this an important issue for them as well. How significant has their support, or the support of conservatives, been to moving this along?
A lot, because the liberals, who have been the traditional constituency for putting fewer people into prison and treating them more humanely when they're in there, have been terrified. Going back to the Willie Horton ad and even before, liberals have had to be more tough than the toughest in order to avoid being pilloried as soft on crime and weak. So they need the conservatives to give them political cover. So if there is a chance of something significant happening, which is probably more likely to happen state by state than at the federal level, it's going to be because conservatives stood up and were heard.
How do conservatives feel about the sentencing options that are sometimes put on the table? Rather than sending someone to jail, a white-collar person to jail, go work in a hospital or a school for 14, 16, 18 months.
That's one area where I can't speak for conservatives, across the board, but the conservatives who have signed on to these movements for reform strongly oppose mandatory minimum sentences. They think that's taken away judicial discretion. It's become a tool that prosecutors use to browbeat people into cutting plea deals. They want much more flexibility in sentencing. They want many more alternatives for people who are mentally ill or drug addicted, particularly for sort of low-level drug crimes. There's a pretty broad Republican/conservative constituency for those.
Bill Keller, thank you. I appreciate you coming on this morning.
And congratulations. You're having a pretty good time.
I am. Having a great time. The Marshall Project is off and running.
Yeah, well, congratulations.
Still ahead, a power